Well, this is my break, so you got 15 minutes. I don't even normally smoke, but I want the whole break experience, so please don't kill my vibe.
Where did you move here from?
Austin. You know Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I've heard of Texas.
Let me tell you, that's about as close to Texas as you want to get.
I hear Austin is nice.
You're funny. To answer your question, no, I did not get breaks in Texas. Employers are not legally required to offer breaks of any kind.
Well, that doesn't seem right.
Goddamn right it ain't right. It also ain't right that Texas and our government as a whole believe corporations are not only people, but better than people. They have more rights and none of the consequences of a person, so the well-being of a company's shareholders is more important than the well-being of people. Taking a break on the clock is considered theft, punishable by firing and in some cases jail.
Doesn't that go both ways, though? Can the company go to jail? I'm sorry. That was a stupid question.
Nah, honey, that's not stupid at all. You would think there would be consequences for a company that's considered a person when said company commits a crime, but that ain't the case. Companies steal from employees all the time. It's called wage theft.
Wage theft?
Yeah, that's when an employee is forced to work more hours than they are paid. Shit, in most states, including Texas, service industry workers don't get paid at all. Not wages, at least. We work for tips only.
Wait, isn't there a federal minimum wage?
Oh, there is. And it applies to literally every single industry in the country except service.
Why's that?
Well, that's a crazy story. Like lines on Gary Busey's coffee table crazy, like Mel Gibson on amphetamines and gin crazy, like Kanye on Twitter crazy, like Marjorie Taylor.
Oh, I get it, like Jack Nicholson in The Shining.
There you go. So you remember the Civil War?
I was born in 2006.
So when the South lost the war and were forced to free their slaves, you see, they believed they were special, so special, in fact, that God himself had given them dominion, not just over the animals and the land, but over the people too, at least people of color. And for many generations, they enjoyed the luxuries of being special, getting their breakfast served in the morning and steak and scotch in their evenings, and pretty much anything they desired without lifting a finger. And with full bellies, they would walk among their antebellum estates, admiring the beautiful wildflowers, the butterflies and bees and lush verdant crops, and their slaves being whipped out back by the barn, and thought, ain't it lovely to be a member of a superior race? That is one thing no one can ever take away from me.
Oh, they didn't read the whole script, did they?
No, they did not. That shit came to an end, and when they lost the war, their wealth, their status, and their slaves, and the humiliation of them being treated like they weren't special anymore was just too much for them. When they walked into town and saw their own slaves working as barbers, porters, shoe shiners, cooks, waiters, and being paid with money, with Northern Yankee federal money, woo-wee. Well, that was like pouring lemon and kerosene on their already festering open wounds and then lighting them up with a napalm cross. Well, they freaked the fuck out and threw a 5-alarm tantrum the likes of which no one had ever seen, at least not since the beginning of the war. And seeing how we were still recovering from that first tantrum, we didn't want to trigger those fragile powder kegs again anytime soon, so Congress carved up the classification for general employment into 2 categories: wage workers and tipped workers, meaning the former would receive at least a mandatory minimum wage, and the latter could only be paid in tips.
Which were all people of color.
Poor people, but yeah, mostly people of color.
And it's still that way.
In most states, yeah. Well, FDR introduced the Fair Labor Services Act in 1933 as part of the New Deal to ensure all workers received a guaranteed minimum wage, but guess who showed up and threw another tantrum?
Seriously? Man, they must have really liked racism. Like it was their favorite thing.
Yeah, they were obsessed, like my ex, who used to send me DMs of crude MS Paint drawings of me as Chun-Li and him as Solid Snake, with me doing various things to his snake.
Gross.
So nothing changed, obviously, with the law. I mean, not my ex. He's dead. Anyway, on it went until 1966 when Johnson, a.k.a. Pants Python Johnson, a.k.a. will someone please let out my inseam? These trousers cannot contain my nature, Johnson. Introduce an executive order to once again make sure minimum wage applied to all industries, including service, but try to guess what happened.
Oh no! Is there no end to their original trauma?
Honey, there ain't enough therapy in the world that could fix that kind of broken. I'm afraid they will always be stuck in an alternating current of pride and shame with no hope of ever breaking the circuit, but powerful enough to cook half the population of the U.S.
Like revenants, waiting in the shadows, fixating on their wounds and plotting revenge. I'm going to use that in my campaign. It's my turn to DM next week.
Well, good for you and your friends, despite you no-butting my metaphor. So yeah, I guess they went all vengeful ancestral spirit on Johnson, who compromised, and we ended up with a thing called a tipped wage, which meant the service industry would only be required to pay a small portion of the minimum wage as long as the employees' tips were enough to make up the difference.
Wait, I don't,
Today, a server like myself is only guaranteed $2.13 an hour, but if a server makes over $7.25 in tips, which I did every night because I'm fucking charming and good at my job, those tips cover the cost of my wage and I can take home whatever I get tipped beyond that. So in the end, it was the customers who ultimately paid my salary and the restaurant paid jack shit. To them, I was free labor.
wow, like a slave.
No, I wouldn't say that. But as far as I'm concerned, any business that makes the customer pay their workers for them, as mandated by law, be of old, bitter racists, still mad about not having slaves, well, that ain't no business. That's something else entirely.
It's an ancient war waged over centuries between good and evil, those with power versus those subjugated by their power. Wow, that's so cool.
Not cool at all, dude.
No, yeah.
No one said you can't use it in your campaign, though. Knock yourself out.
Sick.